Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. Today, I am joined with one of MMA's OGs. He is UFC vet, Mr. Batman, Kurt Pellegrino. Kurt, what's going on, man? How's a Saturday afternoon treating you?
So busy day, always busy, always busy.
You know, man, you've really been in this world of combat sports before it was cool. I mean, you were
I say that
competing.
all the time.
You were competing in the early 2000s during the time where, John McCain was calling this human cockfighting. It wasn't legal at all states. A lot of people thought this was like criminal activity. They didn't see it as a sport. When you first started getting into this stuff during the early promotions, do you have any stories of maybe like fighting outside bars, barns, mystery opponents, bad medicals? Do you have anything interesting?
I actually fought Mac Danzig for my first fight, uh, which was great. We fought, and so I have two funny ones. So I fought Mac Danzig, and it was in the Joker's nightclub in Massachusetts. You had to, like, all these people like, oh, I want to get paid money, want to have my name on my shirt, which is ironic because I got my gym shirt on because I was at the gym all day. But like they want, like, you know, they want like nicknames, and everyone's getting tattooed because they think that's what fighters look like. Like I was getting tattooed when I was 18 years old, right? I wish I could get all the tattoos taken away because now it's, to me, it's not cool. Like I like getting tattooed just to get tattooed, but so I was in the Joker's nightclub. My locker room was the men's bathroom. Like someone was taking a shit when I was like just sitting there trying to concentrate. Like it was out of control. And people are drunk, and they told us don't jump in the ring because it was a ring because your head could hit the ceiling if you were tall, which I didn't have to worry about it, but I could touch the ceiling with my hand just standing. You know what I mean? And so it was interesting having a locker room with one pisser, a shitter, and a sink, and you could have that private room when you were the next fighter up. That was the bathroom. I'm like, So that was pretty, and someone was taking a shit when I was just trying to concentrate, which was wild. Like we didn't know how to like it wasn't like there wasn't like hitting mitts. Like none of that was really a thing. It was just show up and to the venue and fight. Um, so that was my first. I ended up beating Mac at that time, and so that was that experience there. 10 minutes straight, no rounds, a 10-minute fight. And then I went and I fought him again in the WEC, um, for the U.S. Championship, I guess. And I got the wrong blood work done. So the fight's off, right? Like now, like the fight's off. Especially then, like you couldn't. If you got the wrong blood work, they'll get someone to draw your blood in a second, and you're good. You could fight, especially in the UFC. And they looked at me and they said, "Listen to me. I know this is a title fight, so it's a big fight, but you can't. If you don't get the proper B blood work that you were needed, we're going to suspend you indefinitely. You have 1 week." I'm like, so let me get this straight. I don't got the right blood work. You're still going to let me fight as long as I go home and get the blood work. They were like, yeah. Like it was the wild, wild west then. Like when fighting was cool. And like when you looked at another fighter, like I didn't like stare at other fighters because that's when people wanted to fight. It's not this internet fighting game they do now, like Dustin Poirier. Like he's like the last of a dying breed. Like he doesn't do this to get famous. He does this because he likes punching people in the face.
When you first started getting into this, did you ever envision that mixed martial arts would blow up to what it is today?
Yeah, I did. I saw the direction when I was fighting. They had like 10 fights a year before I was in the UFC, and I went to a UFC when Chuck Liddell fought Kevin Randleman, who is one of my idols, and who I tried to like emulate and be like him. I just loved everything about him. Tough guy, wrestler, wore wrestling shoes, the big jump, like man, and like he was a giant hero of mine, and like I loved him to death. I actually got to party with him a couple times, and Like I had to tell, like we talked on the cell phone, but he was on an airplane. Like, what's up, Pellegrino? You crazy motherfucker! I'm like, what are you doing? Like Kevin Randall's been calling my number. It was such a. I couldn't believe how famous I was to have this man calling me. You know what I mean? Um, and, and then when I finally got in the UFC, just to like, you were so famous because they didn't have so many fights. The undercards the prelims were as famous as the main events. Now there's so many fights. I mean, you couldn't walk through a hotel. I mean, I used to tell my friends, I'm like, I used to want to be famous and I wanted people to notice me and pull on my shirt and grab me. Now I can't walk through a hotel room or sit at breakfast. I can't go through it. And they're like, yeah, get out of here. I'm like, you watch. Come to me one of my fights in Las Vegas. You watch and I'll dress just like I am now. Watch what happens. Bro, the next day, they're like, yo, if you're not wearing a hoodie and a hat and sunglasses and your sweatshirt, and put your hands in your pockets, he's like, we're not gonna, because we can't go anywhere with you in the hotel. I'm like, I told you, it's nuts. Um, but it's way different now than it ever was.
You know,
So
I can definitely see your point on that. And, I see pros and cons of it from a fight fan who's been watching this for over 20 years. I enjoyed those early days. I enjoyed the golden era of MMA where it kind of felt like this was an underground thing and not everyone knew about it. Now the sport is as culturally accepted as I think any of them right now. ESPN deal, you're getting at least 40 dates a year for UFC shows. And now when you look at the cards, I know a lot about these fighters, but I don't know everyone fighting anymore. I mean,
I don't know anyone.
I don't think anyone can keep up track. Do you feel like the sport has changed after the Fertitta sold?
I think that it's more of a circus. Um, I think things have been broken. Like where there would be no girl fighting, when now there's girl fighting. Then there's celebrities that are fighting that haven't paid their dues, but they can, but people want to see them get beat up. Like CM Punk, who is like, I'm sorry, that dude has no business fighting in the UFC, just like I have no business doing WWE. And for him to take some kid's spot who's wrestled their whole life, or was a world champion, or very good kickboxer, or like a Gordon Ryan, who, if he grabs you, he's going to strangle you. How is that guy cutting the line? I worked my ass off to get there, and to put up a circus show like that in there, to me, I just thought that was kind of disrespectful to the sport. Left a kind of bad taste in my mouth. I mean, CM Punk's probably a good dude, but like, he sucks.
You feel like the mystique and that aura is gone now?
When I was fighting, you were either the number one guy in the state, um, number one guy in the country, number one guy. Like, I can't get a fight in 6 states. I got to go to California. I got to go to do like a Monty Cox show, like in the Midwest, because those guys will fight anyone. Like, I'm like, Monty, I'm fighting a bear. You really got a bear for me to fight? Well, I was the only guy I got. I fought in Wisconsin. I had this fight against this kid. And I don't know if you remember him, but he was a journeyman, Steve Kennison. And my opponent got hurt. He weighed in, got hurt a couple hours before the fight. And I'm like, dude, I just flew to ATT. Just joined it. It was my first fight. I really want to hurt someone at this point. And they went on the loudspeaker and they're like, is anyone willing to fight 170 pounds? His name is Kurt Pellegrino. Dude, Steve Kennison was in the crowd, put his beer down, got a pair of shorts, and fought me. I mean, he was tough. I'm like, dude, that kid's tough. He's beaten a couple guys at ATT, and they're like, avenge them. I'm like, I'm going to kill him. So, like, that's no medicals, no commission, just fighting. There's no commission there. When I fought, we weighed in on the scale you have in your bathroom. No commission officer. The kid that was running the promotion fought on the card, and that was using his scale. I'm like, did you weigh in? He's like, no. I'm like, well, I guess you made weight. Like you don't get to see that. You know who runs a really, really great promotion is Tim Crater down in
Huh?
Louisiana. I almost, when we went there to fight during COVID, that made me feel like the fighting is still really here.
You remember where you were when you got the phone call that you're being signed to the UFC?
Could tell you exactly what happened. I was getting married to my first wife. I was in my cousin's room because tomorrow I was getting married. He was my best man. And I get a phone call from my manager, and he's like, "Hey," and everyone, I mean, Hermes Franca, I mean, Miguel Tor, everyone's at my wedding, and it's the day before, and I remember getting the phone call, "Hey, you're fighting in the UFC in 4 weeks." I was like, "What?" So I called my soon to be wife, and I go, "Wedding's off," and she's like, "What?" I go, "I'm in. We're fighting in Mandalay Bay, fighting Drew Fickett, and I got to get home. I have 4 weeks." So she's like, and she like calmed me down, and she's like, "Look, this is what I have worked for. You've worked for this your whole life. This is the moment we've been waiting for, but we are getting married tomorrow." I go, "No, I'm not getting married. I told you when we first met, if you ever tell me I can't train or I can't go work out, we're just going to break up, because that's the only thing I ever have. It's the only thing that's never hurt me. It's the only thing that's never divorced me. It's the only thing that's never broke up with me. It's the only thing that's never said anything bad about me. It's the only thing I truly, really do love is competing. And if you tell me I can't, then we're never going to make it." And she's like, "Don't drink. Get married. When the reception is over, we'll go to the hotel. We'll go to our hotel room. We'll go to bed, and we will drive home tomorrow." We were going to stay we were going on vacation 2 days later. And I was like, "Well, vacation's done. I'm not going on the cruise. Like, it's over." She's like, "Let's go." And we drove back to Florida the next day. We literally woke up, got in the car, took off home.
You
That
know,
was my wedding.
that wild. You've had
Mind
some,
you, I'm divorced now.
so maybe the Kurt Pellegrino what not to do if you're getting married situation.
No, what? I don't have no regrets. We're good friends. We have two beautiful children together, Priscilla and Kurt. And I ran into my high school girlfriend. Had no kids. We're married, I think 7 years now, and we have two beautiful little babies too, Jimmy and Millie. And we're all just one big happy family. And I told my wife Tara, I call her Smurf. Uh, we dated all through high school, so she's my high school girlfriend. And I said, no, same rules apply in high school that applied when I was fighting, that apply now. Like, I got to compete. If you tell me I can't compete, we're just not going to make it, because it's the only thing I love. I love competing. It took me a very long time to stop competing, but God gave me a fake knee to stop competing. So I still tried competing, and then he gave me a fake shoulder. My left shoulder is completely fake. And now I still wanted to compete, and then he had to reconstruct my hip. So he's really trying hard to keep me not from doing it, but it's safer if I don't.
We're seeing this past week big announcement, Global Fight League coming across. 300 guys apparently signed this organization. A lot of guys like Junior Dos Santos, Verdum, Rusimir Paul Harris. The list goes on and on. Guys come out of retirement to sign up for this. I'm not sure. Have you heard of this by any chance?
Now I follow a couple of my friends um, on social media, and like I talk with. I don't like. Listen, just like all those other organizations, which I'm not going to name any names, you're all going to go under. There's one king. It's called the UFC. You guys could pay all this money to all these people and bankrupt yourself over and over and over again. It's the UFC. Just what people should be doing is maybe partner with the UFC and get their backing, like when it was the WEC. Instead of trying to compete against these guys, it's just not going to work. They're the biggest organization in the universe. What makes you think you're going to make it? You know what I mean? Like they have pay-per-view. It's just too much.
The sport has evolved and changed in many ways, and I think a big way in which we're really seeing it, personality and entertainment. Obviously, in any industry, you need that to succeed, especially anything like what the UFC is doing. Back in your day, there were some guys who had that personality. Yourself was one of them. Tito Ortiz, you had Chael Sonnen, then McGregor came around, and now you have people being people they're not. They're putting on straight facades, they're putting on characters because they know it gets them money, it gets them title shots, and unfortunately, it looks like that's what you have to do sometimes. How has personality affected the sport?
I just think it's a show. If I was younger and I started fighting and made it in the UFC, I'd be the most famous person in the whole universe. I am such an asshole. I am such a character. I've always have been my whole life. I don't know how not to be funny. I have me and Kenny Florian were doing it before it was cool when he was Jimmy the Jet Johnson and I was Chad Campbell Soup. We went out in Boston with white gloves on and a turtleneck and a jacket, and we went to bars. And I never came out of character, and neither did Kenny. Those YouTube videos are super funny, and we did that not realizing we were ahead of the time. But like, if I could go back now, I'm telling you, in 5 fights, I'd be fighting for the belt because I'd win all the 5 fights and I would talk so much shit and have such a good time doing it. Because to me, it was competition, but it was also to have fun. Like what Miguel and Dustin Poirier, and I've never heard someone say I was an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Kurt's not cool to hang around. I'm actually a really fun, loving, caring guy. Like I like having a good time. So I did have the time of my life. I wish I knew when I was in it that it was the time of my this was the time of my life. And now that it's over, to look back, I'm like, man, all the friends I had, they're all gone. I still talk to a lot of them. Me and Kenny Florian keep in touch. Um, but like, I haven't seen him in years. You know what I mean? I haven't really seen Dustin in a couple years, and Miguel Torres in a couple years, and those are all my good friends and fighting. So I miss a lot of them. But I'm glad I'm out of the sport. I think I don't, it's that the fighting game, I believe, has gotten a lot harder. Uh, just the kicks alone, the teep kicks, the kicks to the leg. But I don't really watch fighting at all. I only watch them if like Dustin or like Clay is fighting, Clay Guida. And I don't really have many guys I watch anymore.
You competed with some of the best in the world. And as you mentioned, most of the guys liked you. One guy that it looked like you had a little bit of beef with for a minute there was Nate Diaz. I think very famous interview of him talking with Ariel Helwani. You walk by, he says something. What was that all about?
He was just mad that I beat him up pretty bad. You know what I mean? In round one. I mean, I lost the fight, but anyone could beat anybody up. It's what fighting is. It happens at the end. I totally respect Nate. I think Nate's awesome. I root for Nate. When Nate Diaz fights, I'll buy the pay-per-view every time. Why? Because I respect Nate. I think he's really, really tough. I have no ill will against Nate. He was mad. Not that I was beating him up in round one. He was mad that I left the Gracie Association, which I left because of reasons. Nothing that I did wrong, or it was just I was having a disagreement with one of the black belts that was not a Gracie, and you know, I just it was easier for me just to, well, they kicked me out, but I was staying there until they kicked me out, until there was nothing left from them to drain from me, to show them how mentally tough I was. He did everything he possibly could to make me quit, and I never quit until he had no other reason to say we don't want you here no more. I have no problems with Henzo or any of the other Gracies. Like, I'm all good, but Nate, he was young. He doesn't know what was really behind the scenes and what was going on and how much I was putting up with all that shit. And I have no feelings towards that. Like, he literally has no idea. But like, I very rare, like, I write him when he's in town. I'm like, yo, you're in town, what's up? But other than that, like, I'm a fan. I root for him all the time. And I hope he fights Connor and fucking smokes him.
When you were fighting, obviously you went by Batman. You had the bleached blonde hair. What was the nickname? What's the whole behind this whole Batman concept?
Lucky T-shirt. Lucky T-shirt. It was I was running late to a wrestling tournament, and my dad told me to pack my clothes, and I didn't because I was a kid, an asshole. And when he came into my room, he's like, "Come on, we gotta go. I was like, "Oh, I didn't pack my clothes," so I just threw a black shirt and sweatpants. I wasn't paying attention. And so when I took the shirt out, it was a Batman shirt that Francis Marshall wears to this day. Every time it's underneath his clothes. And it was just a lucky T-shirt. I traveled with it. It was like a whoopee, you know what I mean? Made me comfortable. But I wore it all through my middle school career, all through my high school career. It was always wearing this one particular shirt, and it just gave me good luck. And if you watch a lot of my fights, you'll see the undershirt underneath. It's that shirt. And for Francis too, you will see it. But I tried to get that nickname changed my first fight in the UFC, but Bruce Buffer asked me what my name was. I told him it was the real deal. After one of the greats, Evander Holyfield. So I tried to rip his nickname off, and he said he would look into it. I'm not too sure about that, Pellegrino. I'm like, nah, that's my nickname, man. The real deal. Got it on my shorts. I swear to God, I have it on my shorts. And when I was walking out, he's like, Kurt, Batman. I'm like, mother. Now I'd be known as Batman forever. I wanted to grow up. And it was literally like, I go to wrestling tournament, little kids, Batman, 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 jiu-jitsu tournaments, Batman, Batman, Batman. I'm like, fuck, it's Kurt Pellegrino. Stop calling me Batman. But for all the jiu-jitsu tournaments, I always wore that shirt. I didn't wear anything of me. It was just that T-shirt. And yeah, it just was known as Batman. I haven't even watched the Batmans.
This day and age, there's so many eyeballs onto the sport, and you have now a term called the casual fan. So these are the people that inhabit Buffalo Wild Wings. They're in the cheap seats of the stands. They're usually pretty drunk, and they really have no idea of what's going on. If jiu-jitsu guys are on the background, changing position, twist them in the you-know-what, they're humping each other, crotch sniffing. The list goes on and on. What do you think of this crazy concept of people?
When they talk like that, when they're like, they're what the UFC needs. They're just a bunch of seat fillers, right? They're just a bunch of seat fillers. Those are the same seat. I call them seat fillers. They're the same seat fillers that will, like, as a joke, I troll myself because it's the funniest thing to do. And on Instagram, they like MMA whatever put out, and they said the 6th greatest of all time. And it was like George St. Pierre, which he's definitely there. Anderson Silva, John Jones, Khabib, and it was 2 other guys. And I wrote, "Don't forget about me," as a joke. I fought for number contender twice. Like, I wasn't a jerk. I won 5 Friday Night Awards. Like, I was there. And then you see the people, all the seat fillers, and they're like, "Ah, you sucked. You couldn't sniff my ass." And I'm like, "Oh my God, but my nose is so good at sniffing ass." So, like, "Oh, well, remember when Nate Diaz choked you out like a bitch?" I'm like, "Oh my God, it was so tight. I know I suck." So, and then they're all like, "Yo, bro, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that." I'm like, "No, it's all good, brother. Nate's the man." Like, so, like, I'll do that just because I just like to see how terrible people really are. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you could be like, "Hey, I'm the best podcaster out there," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, you suck and you're a piece of shit, and your show's never gonna go anywhere." Who says that? Right? Like, what's the matter with these people? These are the same people that sit in the nosebleeds, sits at Buffalo Wild Wings, and they can't even get to the bar. They're sitting at a chair and they're telling their girlfriends and or if they could even get one, and they're telling their friends if they even have any, he should be doing. And they walk into a gym and they're like, "Oh, this is too hard." Seat fillers. They're my favorite people in the whole world because they really mean nothing, but they keep everything afloat.
Do you take a lot of pride in knowing that you were one of those part of the core group of guys who really paved the way and are allowing the kids to do this today for a living?
Yeah, I especially take that for grappling. Like the Gordon Ryans and the Mikey all those guys, and Gary Tonin, all those great grapplers. That was me. That I did it. I was in Abu Dhabi. I competed all over the country in grappling. I've won everything there could possibly to win. All the super fights. I beat a laundry list of world champion black belts. I went to fighting because there was no money in grappling. And if I could have made that money in grappling, that's what I would have done. I would have grappled all day. I loved it. That got me more nervous than fighting. Grappling. That made me feel like I was still like, I wanted to wrestle and win a national championship. And every time I do a grappling match, I'm like, this is my national championship. And that's just how it was. And so yeah, there's a lot of us good grapplers that paved the way. It wasn't just me, but there was some good grapplers back in the day that got paid nothing and paid to do the events. I was actually a pretty higher paid grappler when I did some super fights, which I was pretty happy about. But that wasn't until like the end. Like I was beating world champions in grappling when I was a blue belt.
American Top Team, a gym that caters to so many right now. I mean, some of the best ever has trained over at American Top Team. And one thing I think is so amazing about that gym is, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think many guys realized if you want to do this at the top level, you need to be well-rounded. I mean, you need well-rounded, you have to train 24/7, basically. American Top Team, I think, is one of those first gyms that really instilled that and really started doing that. When
Oh
you
yeah.
were back in the day, did you kind of start getting that direction that, hey, if I want to do this at the highest level, I need to be as well rounded as possible. There can't be many off days.
I mean, I trained, there was never an off day. If there was an off day, I was running. If I wasn't doing anything, I was doing sit ups or push ups. My off day was eating clean. My off day was fasting for the whole day. Um, my off day was when my fight was over. Um, that was my off day. Like when my fight was over, I was out with my wife partying, having fun, celebrating the win or soaking in the loss and reevaluating what I got to do. Kind of, I just, you can only be as good as you can be if you put all the time in, if you put the best time you did yesterday, right? So if you were great yesterday, well, then the next day you got to try to be the same level. And if you fall underneath that for any reason, like if I had an injury, that's when I was taking my days off. I mean, I was always riding the speed bike. I was always going to the gym and walking on a treadmill. Like I mean, my wife had my firstborn and um, Priscilla, and she was in the hospital. I was like, all right, listen to me. I'm going to go work out. Don't push that baby out. I want to see everything. I want to see the water breaking the whole 9 yards. Keep her in there. I'll be back in a couple hours. And I went to go to the gym and worked out for 2 hours. And she's like, you got to get back here. It's coming. I'm like, ah. And I ran back. I mean, 2 hour workout on it. How many men will do that? Just the serious fighters. Like I sacrificed a lot in my life to get to have what I have and did what I did.
all these casuals watch the sport in this day and age, and I think they look at the John Joneses, the Habibs, the Sean O'Malley's, and they're like, whoa, being a fighter is the greatest thing ever. The fame, the glory, the fortune. Little do they know, man. I mean, this is literally one of the hardest occupations. To even get to the UFC, the battle it out on the regional scene, you're not making much money. A lot of guys have 9-to-5 jobs, kids, wives. You have to pay to train, deal with a bunch of killers. You want it just as bad as them. You make it to the UFC, yeah, you start making money, but you're not a millionaire right away, even there. How did you keep pushing forward for all those years?
I went to a fight when Chuck Liddell fought Kevin Randleman, and BJ Penn fought, I think, Cal Uno in Atlantic City. And I saw that, and I'm very motivational. Like, I motivated myself a lot and pushed myself. And when I saw that as we were leaving, my buddy goes, "That was sick. There's another one in like 5 months here." I go, "No, I'll never go to another one." They're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, I won't go to another one until I fight in it." And they're like, "So you won't go to another UFC until you fight in it?" I go, "Yeah, I made my mind up. I think I'm going to really take this serious. I work for the town, and I'm going to wake up before, I'm going to do what I did in high school. I'm going to wake up before school. Now it's different. I work. I'm going to wake up before work." And I used to work for a town. It was an orange t-shirt or sweatshirt. And I'm gonna pin up my sweatshirt, or the orange. I think it was a t-shirt I pinned up on my door of my bedroom, or behind my TV, I believe it was. And I wrote, "You'll never make it." And every day I'd wake up at like 4 a.m, look at the t-shirt, and I go, I better get up and start my run, because the t-shirt says you'll never make it. And I'm going to wear that orange t-shirt or sweatshirt, which is a great job, and all the guys were great, but it just wasn't for me. That was my motivation. And then when I got in there, I just said, nobody ever believed me that I could do something like this, because getting in the UFC when I did was way tougher than it is now to get in. And I accomplished something that nobody thought I could do, and I did it with a full-time job. And and I would say, when I moved to ATT, I quit that job, because I'm like, hey, listen, there's nothing left for me here. If I don't go for it, I'm never gonna make it. Like, I lived in my truck for 2 weeks before I got my own apartment in Florida. I I mean, I got my I had a Class B CDL license, and the woman says, "Do you want me just to?" I got my motorcycle license. She's like, "Do you want me just to transfer the Class B?" And I didn't know what to say. And she's like, "Honey, it's a Class B. Do you want that? It's just $20." I go, "Yeah, but if I keep the Class B on my license, then that means that I have a way out." She's like, "A way out of what?" I go, "I'm trying to fight in the UFC, and if I have that on my license, then that gives me the way out. So I don't want it." She goes, "You want to get rid of this endorsement? You have to do the whole test over again." That's fine. I'm never gonna work a day in my life again. So I was good at motivating myself. I was always good at keeping myself motivated, finding little ways, like getting my hands tattooed. I got my hands tattooed on the stroke points. I never want to work inside an office ever again. So I just did small little things that remind me of what I was here on this planet to do. And it was to compete at the highest level in the world. And that was all I needed for motivation.
How are you enjoying life after competing in mixed martial arts?
It got really weird. I got divorced, which was that beat me up pretty bad. But like I said, everyone's good. We're all happy. One giant family, which is a good thing. We worked hard on that. Um, I want to compete so bad, but I physically can't do it no more. I mean, the shoulder, I could use it completely. My knee, I mean, I can't even like wrestle, which is the one thing I really want to do, be able to do with both of my boys. My son Kurt's 13, and he is a complete savage. Very, very good wrestler, like rewriting all my wrongs with him. And then we have a little one too, Jimmy, who just turned 6. And I just wish I could wrestle with the kids. Like, like other dads that wrestle, I can't. Um, I know my wheelhouse. Like I get scoot on my butt and play jujitsu in the gi, but it hurts. My body definitely hurts. Arthritis in my hands, like my hands, it's hard to like straighten my fingers and my hands a lot. Because we didn't use hand wraps in the in the beginning. Um, and then my hands were so bad back in the day. I had to get the winning gloves and the winning gel pads because I was a good puncher, so I could hit hard. So if you don't wear the really good gloves, you're beating your hands and your wrists up, and I got a plate and 4 screws in my hand from fighting. Um, it hurts more. Everything hurts. Good old stuff.
Our last question, Kurt, for you. Talked about a little earlier that you were in the gym today. Told me you were in the gym painting earlier. Obviously, with Francis Marshall, kids wrestling. Do you think, in one way or another, are you going to be involved with something mixed martial arts, whether it maybe be coaching, wrestling, helping out when needed? Do you always think that's going to be part of you?
It's who I am. I mean, Francis Marshall, I got him I got 5 guys in the UFC that started off in my gym as white belts. I mean, I'm the only person around in Jersey that's really done that. Nor I would say in my surrounding area. Um, I didn't get students like other gyms do that train at their gym. Like I made them. So my son, who I wrestle with, and we go all over the country with right now. So I'm in that really much. I run my own gym. My main goal is to get an Abu Dhabi competitor, someone for ADCC. That's something that I always tell everyone when you come into my gym, you see all my posters and the shadow boxes. I call it the Kurt Pellegrino disease. Just because I did it doesn't mean you can do it, right? It's because you watch the guys fighting in the gym or fighting on TV. That doesn't mean you could do it. Like I stayed away from my family. I had a hotel room that I would stay in or a house for 3 months. I didn't see my wife or my children. Um, I didn't go to funerals. I didn't go to weddings. I didn't go to birthday parties, even if it was my own or my children's. I would not go to them if I was in a training camp. I didn't go out with my friends. I didn't care if I didn't go out drinking. I did not care about anyone else but me. And it was really, really difficult to do that. And I tell people all the time, I gave up on life. Like I didn't care. If I could have died in training, I wouldn't have cared because it's the only thing I wanted to do was to train and make it and win my next fight. And everyone and everything was second. I mean, a far second. It was a giant gap. It was me and second was so far down here that all this space here was just for me to add more of me stuff. And I always tell people, if you're not willing, like if my mom passed away, I wasn't going to that funeral if I was in a fight camp. I can't feel bad. I can't feel sorry. I can't be soft. I mean, Vitor Belfort's sister got kidnapped. Most likely, I don't even know. I hope she's still alive. And he still went and fought. I would say 99% of the world would not even have showed up. And everybody would have understood that. These people now, these kids now, that all these guys that say, oh, I want to fight, and they're in these local regional shows, if their parents passed away, guess what? The fight's off. But when you're in the UFC and you're making real money, it's your job. Like those are the ones that are going to be successful in life. The ones that could put life as second and put themselves as first. Those are the ones that are successful. And I'm real glad fighting's over because I love hanging out with my kids. I love being a complete idiot with my family, singing every morning, dancing the music, dancing with my daughters, you know, embarrassing my older kids, dancing when the bus comes, you know what I mean? And just to embarrass my little ones. And that's not who I was when I was fighting. And I mean, I was that guy, but I wasn't there. I was I was my brain was somewhere else. When the fight was over, I had that month to be that loving dad. But when that month was over, I mean, I mean, my gears were going. I took 1 week off, and I was the greatest dad in the world for that week. And then I was back in the gym on day 8. And even if I didn't have a fight camp, it was train in the morning, ride your bike in the afternoon, train at night, 7 days a week. So I'm glad that guy's gone, because and I got like 249 pounds. That dude was awesome. He was fat. He was really, really happy. Um, I just found, thank God I told that fat Kurt, fat European Kurt, everybody called me. Andrew Left called me fat. So yeah, you're like a fat European guy now. But God damn. And but now I've lost all that weight. I'm back down to where I was when I was getting ready for fight camps, and I could walk. I could move around. All my injuries are healed, and it took a while, but it was fun to have Thanksgiving. It was fun to eat Christmas dinners and go to birthday parties. And I'm like eating all the candy and cake. They're like, "What are you doing?" I don't even like cake. This feels good to eat it, you know. So it feels good. I'm happy I'm not a fighter no more. And if you do fight, I always tell people, if you're not 100% and your parents don't understand it, then I don't want to coach you. It's either my way or no way, and I don't care because I'm crazy. I mean, I just talked to Francis, and I was asking him how he was doing, and I go, "That's unacceptable. I want perfection. I've raised you to be better. You're tougher than this. This is what you got to." And he's like, "Okay, okay," So, um, I might have screwed his life up a little bit because he's out of his mind. But I take great pride in that, and I wish I was harder on him when he was a kid.
I'm gonna sneak one last one in there for you. When you're when you're watching your guys compete with Francis and some other guys, do you get more nervous watching them than you did when you were actually about to go out there and fight?
I have no nerves.
No nerves, nothing?
Nah, no nerves. I My dad asked me when I was fighting, "Are you nervous? Do you get scared?" And I said, "Dad, I honestly believe I'm like a great white shark, going in for the kill, quiet, keep to myself. My eyes roll behind my head, and I attack. I go, and when these guys fight, as long as they did everything I told them to do, then they should be just like how I was. And I'm not getting punched in the face. I'm not getting kicked, picked up, slammed, thrown against the wall. I'm not exhausted in between rounds. You are. And if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, then, I mean, he took a fight once, Francis, and he didn't tell me that he basically like had his hand broken, something really bad. Like, he couldn't even hit. And I go, too bad. 2 days you told me that you had this like for 4 weeks. I don't care. You're fighting. He fought his first pro fight. The guy was a 4-0 or 5-0 undefeated, and he was a black belt. And that was his first fight as a professional. And we tapped him in round 1. And I go, bet you wish wish that hand worked better. He's like, I would have punched that kid in the face more. So like that, I mean, that's how I raised this young man. Francis Marshall, I honestly believe is the new, better, more improved, probably handsomer version of myself.
There you go. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, man. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you and, reliving those good old days of combat
Oh
sports.
yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And sorry we couldn't connect though right now.
Hey, no, that's totally good. But that's it for us this afternoon. I'm Fight Dr. Carl Perza. That is Batman, Mr. Kurt Pellegrino. Stick around, fight fans.
See you later.
Thank you so much.